Hello, Jason. It's Wednesday, April 23rd, and I want to start off by belatedly wishing you a happy Good Friday, Easter Sunday, Easter Monday, and Earth Day yesterday. Which reminds me, don't forget, yesterday's Earth Day. Amongst all this crazy Easter long weekend madness followed by Earth Day, all the while interspersed with the NHL and NBA playoffs, though, there's a holiday which I'm assuming you missed. And that is International Independent Record Store Day, a holiday which I participated in fully. As evidenced by my recent purchase of the Scott Pilgrim vs. the World video game soundtrack on vinyl. A Record Store Day exclusive release, which there were only 3 copies of in Woodstock, and I managed to get one. Now, I'm imagining you're saying something like, "But Steve, you're a modern gentleman, don't you already have this soundtrack on MP3? The answer is yes, but I had to buy this vinyl for a very specific reason. That reason being... What? That's right, this limited edition Scott Pilgrim vs. the World video game soundtrack album was released on a transparent yellow-green vinyl. Something which I know is a bit of a gimmick, but still I find incredibly cool. And of course, along with its yellow-green color, I was intrigued by this soundtrack because of the particular way that it was made. Specifically, it was made by a group of artists called Anamanaguchi who specialize in what's called chip tunes, basically 8-bit sounds made into modern-day tracks. And so basically, I was listening to the type of music that I would hear on my NES and Super Nintendo systems on a vinyl, which was kind of weird and kind of cool. But then, in the days following International Independent Record Store Day, I became interested in this resurgence of interest in vinyl. And so I started to wonder why people, particularly young people, are becoming interested in purchasing their music on vinyl when MP3 technology and instant access to music is available for everyone. And, by all accounts, MP3 would have higher fidelity and better sound quality anyway. Now, the obvious go-to answer for why people are becoming more interested in this outdated technology is the word nostalgia, but I don't particularly buy that explanation. In terms of my Scott Pilgrim album, there's definitely a level of nostalgia there, but that's for the 8-bit nature of the sound, not for the record itself. As I said, I also already own the album on MP3. And in my opinion, if nostalgia was what people were actually after, then we'd see the resurgence of other technologies as well, which quite frankly we don't see on the same scale as with vinyl. For example, we haven't seen the resurgence of other music-related technologies like widespread popularity of radio or cassette technology. And following that line of thinking, we haven't seen the resurgence of things like VHS cassettes, which naturally should follow. And, to put one final nail in the coffin, for anyone under the age of about 35 to 40, having nostalgia for records isn't a natural thing. We may have a sort of acquired nostalgia, a sense that we should yearn for this lost technology, but it was never really a part of our day-to-day lives. I mean, when I was growing up, we had cassettes, that was all well and good, but for the most part, people bought their music on CDs for as long as I can remember. After the argument about nostalgia, people generally turn to an argument about the technology itself being better for listening to music. This, as you might imagine, is an argument which I also disagree with completely. Consider my phone. It's small enough to fit in my hand, and yet it can hold upwards of 1,000 songs. Moreover, with the simple addition of a pair of headphones, I can listen to those thousands of songs whenever I want, wherever I want. Moreover, if a song comes up that I don't want to listen to, I can skip to the next one with a push of a button. I don't have to look for a particular groove and count the number of rings to find out which song is the one I want to hear. Along with this argument that the record is just a better way of listening to music is the idea that somehow playing it on vinyl gives it a warmth or a life that you just can't get from MP3s. But let me again counter this assertion by saying that if you really do enjoy the sound of your music on vinyl, you could record that vinyl onto MP3. The sound would literally be preserved as you hear it on vinyl. But if, like most people, you prefer as accurate a recreation of the sound of the band playing as possible, then MP3 is a far superior technology. So you've got to be asking something like, if there's no nostalgia value and there's no noticeable improvement in the sound quality, then why did I buy that Scott Pilgrim album? And the answer, so far as I can tell, has to do with the fact that I can actually hold it in my hands. And this is really the point which Record Store Day made me think about, the fact that these days we buy so much stuff that isn't real. If you go onto iTunes and pay your 10 to 20 bucks for an album, then all you're really getting is a copy of a file that exists on a server somewhere. Literally every other person who bought that album on iTunes has the exact same thing that you do. 0 for 0 and 1 for 1. But when you buy an album on vinyl, you can hold it in your hands, you can look at the record, you can see the grooves and imagine the music imprinted on this disc. It's no longer just this bunch of ones and zeros shared by everybody who put in their $20. It's your album. You own it. And over time, it'll develop its own little pops and crackles individual to your disc. And so, at the end of the day, that's what I think buying records is all about. It's about holding it in your hands. It's about returning to a physical product in an age that, quite frankly, strives to make everything that it possibly can digital. And really quickly, I want to do a challenge status update. I haven't really been reading. I've been distracted by playing video games. So there's not really any progress on the reading challenge. I'm still working on the Michael J. Fox book, though I am almost done. And a couple of nights over the past weekend I went out running, so I'm now at 45.2 miles out of 500. I really need to pick up the pace though if I want to catch up to par. As well, I've done some basic relearning exercises for French and German and done some very introductory stuff with Italian. And aside from that, I haven't really been making progress lately because I've been lazy. Because that's what I do. And now on to Battleship. Your attack on F6 was a miss. Maximum probability that. And I am going to attack F2. And now for the word of the day, which, considering our discussion of records, is going to be the word song. In French, chanson. In German, Lied. And in Italian, canzone.